Welcome back. We've seen Nigeria's relations with the United States go through the different phases, and especially through this period of insecurity, the U.S. has always professed to be Nigeria's #1 international partner against Boko Haram. A few weeks before the general election, Secretary of State John Kerry was in Lagos to meet with the two main presidential candidates, and he urged them to encourage peace during the election and to encourage their supporters to do the same. Mr. Kerry went as far as threatening that anyone found to be instigating electoral violence would be denied entry into the United States. While many of you wondered how the perpetrators of violence would be identified, a lot more were outraged over the statement. But 4 months down the line, I think it's safe to say we're all good. Also, the United States has promised on several occasions to help Nigeria in the fight against insurgency. Diplomats have said much of that support is coming in the form of logistics and training for Nigerian soldiers. The U.S. government has also said at various times that fighting Boko Haram must be done using a multifaceted approach. And now the government has promised $5 million in the fight against insurgency. I'll tell you where I'm going with this. This Monday, President Muhammadu Buhari makes his first visit to the White House as president. It's a one-day visit, so it must be very crucial for both countries. So what would be on the agenda? Of course, security and the strengthening of ties between both countries. My guest this week, Ambassador Joe Keshi, joins me in raising the topics of discussion. Ambassador Keshi, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me again.
President Muhammadu Buhari will be making a very important visit to the White House on the invitation of President Barack Obama. What do you think, would dominate discussions for both of them?
Well, given the little we know right now, it's fair to presume that security issues, beyond the usual congratulations on winning the election, I think we just have to presume that security issues will dominate the discussion between the two leaders, and I think that this is important, given what we're experiencing and the fact that the Boko Haram crisis has actually not disappeared. I think it has moved to another phase, which is almost back to the first phase that we witnessed when it started. So I'd like to presume that security issues would dominate discussions. I also like to believe that President Obama might also push its own agenda, which is a Power Africa thing, which has been going relatively well. So I reckon that between security and a little bit of economic issues would dominate the discussions.
And this visit, obviously, it's a really big deal, for Nigeria, because it puts us in a different, perspective to the rest of the world, which has seen us as, a country that has been riddled by security issues, Boko Haram bombing everywhere, as people think, even though that really is not the case. But it was the same sort of meeting that the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, also had, Barack Obama. So what does this really say, about, Nigerian presidents going to the White House and not having the U.S. president or any top official coming to Nigeria to visit instead?
Well, let's start from the word big and important that you used. This is where I think in some circles, there were those who have expressed the wish that maybe the president should have tarried a while before undertaking this trip to assess a number of things, simply because of the point you made that, look, we've had these sort of discussions in the past. It has not led to an increase in American activities in Nigeria vis-a-vis the issues that concerns us most. And of course, Nigerians actually have cause to be a little bit cautious about this visit, and particularly about the Obama years. More because if you have to look back to when Obama came to office, I think beside Kenya, for obvious reasons, the next country where you find people losing their heads and their minds, being emotionally involved about the election of a black president of the United States was in this country. And I think we've got a bad deal at the end of the day, because in almost everything, if we're not sidelined in one discussion or the other, on the American president's trip, we are not even in the president's agenda, I mean the United States president. And it's not as if the president just visits for the fun of it. There are a couple of reasons why presidents visit anyway. But in our own case, it looks as if it's been deliberate, because when you hear that the plans are on to decide where the president visits, you always hear Nigeria is on the list, and suddenly Nigeria, disappears. But the truth of the matter is that, look, I've always made this point. I do not believe when the Americans say to us that we are strategic partners. And I've always made the point, if we are strategic partners, treat us like one. Respect our views, honor the agreement you've made to us, not just rhetorics. So if you say you're going to assist us, if you say you're going to help us, on intelligence matters, then that is very crucial. But the point again that needs to be made is right now, we need all the help we can gather to end the Boko Haram crisis. And if they are now prepared to help us, because there's a change of government and they believe they can work with President Buhari, so the better. I mean, much better.
You speak about help, and that seems to be something that President Buhari has been soliciting. One of the first things he did after becoming president, after the inauguration, was to solicit the support of neighboring Niger and Chad, the military, with the Nigerian army in fighting Boko Haram. But I think the first thing would be, to either build up the military.
I agree.
What sort of impression does this give the rest of the world when the first things we're doing is to solicit support instead of, looking inwards?
I will not contest that. I believe that that's the first thing. In fact, there are a couple of first things that should have been done. One, rebuild the military, or begin to rebuild the military. At least have a policy pronouncement as to what kind of military you want to put in place. So, to enunciate some of your policies, so that those dealing with you and those that you'll be talking with, before you arrive, they have on their plates a number of, they can begin to see where you are heading to, and they too can decide how do we assist, or what, within the framework of American interests, how do we get involved in developments in Nigeria. We don't have that in place. So again, as I said at the early start of this discussion, that leads us to presume that this is just going to center on, well, we are nice to see you, you're welcome to the White House, and it's good. There's democracy thriving in Nigeria, and we want to see it progress and the rest of the thing. Go back, put on your programs where we can help, we'll be of assistance. But I've always said again that, look, given the nature of the victory of President Buhari should engage his colleagues, his counterparts, and the rest of the world from a position of strength and confidence, because he has the support of the Nigerian people. He should enunciate the policy that speak of Nigerians' leadership. Look, irrespective of the crisis we have today in the Northeast, I still see it as an irritation vis-a-vis our foreign policy. That does not stop us from being the leader that we've always been in this country. It depends on how the leaders project leadership. If they project leadership from a position of confidence and strength, and we have policies that we can speak about. For example, if I were to advise the president, I would say, look, you must engage the United States president on the issue of world peace and say to them, we all need to work together. We must be consulted, because sometimes your own policies invariably affects us. When you look at the world since George Bush, we've had more terrorists, new terrorist group, since America went to Iraq, since the end of Gaddafi, since the civil war in Syria.
And these are all places that the United States has touched.
These are all places United States has touched. So in a way, United States unwitting engagement in this country without a clearly defined plan and objective is also affecting us in one way. Because if you, I think there's a paper or some papers reported today, or talked about a video of Boko Haram beheading.
Yeah.
Where are they
Nigerian
copying this
soldier.
from? From what's going on in the Middle East, the ISIS madness. So they just say that for them, there's a kind of link. They see ISIS as maybe their own leader or people inspiring them,
Yeah,
and
but you know,
they emulate almost what they do.
But they have already pledged allegiance to ISIS. I mean Boko
Precisely.
Haram, and they
So
have been
this is
accepted.
why, we in this country or the Nigerian leaders should not be shy at any given time from reminding the world leaders that, look, be careful about your policies, because in a way they affect the rest of the world. They also affect us.
Thank you so much for speaking
As
with
always,
us.
thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And that's the program this week. I'm glad you could join us. Here's something to think about until next time. What should be the pivot of relations with the United States for this administration? Leave me your comments on facebook.com/diplomatic channel or at Diplomatic Chan. I am Amarachi Obani. Have a great week.